thank you so much for coming today and participating. Obviously, we do a lot of trainings traditionally where it's mainly about products and what the products can do, and a small part of that today will be about it as well. But the main thing is really that it's so much going on in our market at the moment. It's so much going on in China in particular that is influencing our business that we found it quite important to update everyone what the situation is. And to make everyone aware as well how they have to plan and what they maybe need to be aware of when talking to your customer for the rest of the year. But obviously it's traditionally the busy period of the year. So just before I put over to Dean from GoodWe and Mike and John afterwards, I just wanted to use the chance as well to make everyone aware once more. There's definitely still solar panels coming into the market. I guess everyone by now would have seen that we had some good price increases over the last couple of weeks in a quite short amount of time. And I guess the bad news is that we don't think that it will stop here. Over the next couple of months, we don't expect an increase as steep anymore, but we definitely see an increase. So just please everyone, Dean will explain a little bit more in detail in a minute why that's the case, but I guess the message from Kranik's side to you is please talk to our team in time. Please make sure that you source your panels in time, and if your cash flow allows, order them as early as possible, as stock will just get more expensive, at least until the end of the year, so possibly a little bit beyond that. So yeah, that's so far from Kranik's side. Thank you so much for coming once more, and I would put over to Dean then.
Yeah, thanks, Chris. I just want to make sure, can you guys hear me?
Can hear you fine, Dean.
Okay. Yeah, I think the camera may not be working. Just give me 1 second and I'll just share my screen with you. Okay, no problems. Just let me know when you can see my screen there.
Yeah, we can see your screen.
Okay. Yeah, firstly, I just want to thank Kranik for not only hosting the webinar, but also being a close partner of GoodWe Australia. Not only GoodWe Australia, but we have a large global partnership. And as many of you are probably aware, Kranik are one of the largest distributors throughout the world. And now GoodWe also moving into the top 5 largest inverter manufacturers globally, and also the largest storage inverter manufacturer globally. Certainly proud to continue our partnership with Kranik. I just want to first off by introducing a couple of our other colleagues who are going to be presenting today. So firstly, Mike Zhang, who heads up our service and operations business here at GoodWe Australia. Mike will be here to talk about a few frequently asked questions, primarily from a technical service point of view. And then lastly, John Wright, who's our marketing manager for Australia and New Zealand. He's here to just give you a brief update about the marketing promotion we have at the moment. But firstly, I'll just introduce GoodWe as a global manufacturer to you firstly. So you may be aware that about 6 months ago, we became a publicly listed company. Prior to that, we were privately owned, but the public listing gave us a lot of advantages. Certainly one of those was to heavily reinvest in research and development. So our team in China, our R&D team went from around 150 R&D staff to now 500 plus, and that's within the last 6 months. We have strong targets to get to 1,000 R&D staff within the next 12 months as well. You know, it's important to not only continually bring out new products that are innovative, but also continue to redevelop your existing products as well, because generally the price of componentry continually comes down year on year, except for this year. And not only that, if you're not continually to redevelop your existing products, potentially you get left behind from an innovative standpoint. And then secondly, your products become expensive in the market as well. So, so in terms of the inverter manufacturers in Australia, we do have the most products on the market. So we think we certainly have a solution for pretty much any scenario that lays before us, and customers are not having to use our product for one segment and then turn away and use another product for another. So we really try to be a one-stop shop in that sense. We've gone from 1,600 employees to 2,300 employees also within the last 6 months. We've now got well over 100 employees overseas, and we've had about 70% growth as well in the last 12 months. That's globally. In the Australian market, we've had about 40 to 45% growth in the last 12 months as well. So as a result, we're also expanding the local team. We've doubled the team within the last 12 months, and we're about to release some exciting products, which I'll talk to you about in a minute. So one of the things I want to talk to you about today is the factors that are affecting the supply chain globally, not just the inverter supply chain, but also the module supply chain as well. Most of the factors affect both. First of all is the global shipping and container shortages that we've now seen for around about 6 months. So this was initially caused by the COVID-19 pandemic. This then had a domino effect down the supply chain. And early last year, when the pandemic began, Australia, like many other countries, we implemented lockdowns. As a result, that lowered the production of goods, especially in China. Shipping companies then started to reduce the number of containers being sent out. And as other countries were struggling, China started to recover from the pandemic, which meant they were able to resume importing and exporting, and a lot of other countries weren't. So a lot of these containers ended up stacking up at cargo ports throughout the world. And due to the country's national lockdowns around the world, they weren't able to send the containers back. This then caused a huge backlog of containers globally, especially out of China. And then that also led to drastic inflation in shipping and container prices, and then also increased shipping delays. And it was just a simple case of supply and demand. And another factor that has caused serious issues within the last month is the power cuts within China. So these cuts have been driven by a series of complex overlapping factors which have really combined to create a perfect storm for China, which obviously relies heavily, and nearly 60% of its power is coal. So another thing that China tried to implement recently was their target to reduce carbon emissions, and they want to become carbon neutral by 2060. It's really good and well for countries to have really ambitious targets, but it's also important for them to be able to execute those without having significant impacts. And one of the things that potentially happens if you try and implement that too quickly is that has enormous impact on your electricity grid, and you potentially can't handle that. So because as we know, renewables is it's highly valuable. It's also unstable to some degree. So on top of that, the rebound in demand for goods coming out of Chinese factories as the world reopens after the pandemic has effectively left coal production unable to keep up with the demand for energy from factories. So in addition to all of this, you've then also got some political games that are being played by large powerhouse countries, in particular with the pricing of coal. The record high prices of coal have also made it unprofitable for several power plants in China to actually operate. Therefore, some of these power plants have actually shut down because they can't operate at a profit, which has then caused huge supply gaps in the market. And the problems have been most significant in the northeastern parts of China, but not just limited to there. And there was potential for the electricity grid to collapse in certain provinces unless the power was rationed. So that's exactly what they've done. And considering that China's actually considering at the moment of lifting the industrial price of power to effectively ease the supply demand. However, as we know, that's not really a long-term strategy. So how is GoodWe affected? Well, Jiangsu is one of the provinces that are affected by the power cuts. Jiangsu being primarily an industrial hub, a lot of different manufacturers in the solar game manufacture their product there, and some of those manufacturers have been asked to reduce their power usage by 50%. Our factory, we've been asked to reduce ours by 30%, so they'll allow us to run at 70% manufacturing, and we're actually really lucky because in the last 12 months we've doubled our production capacity, and so we're generally only operating at about 70% anyway. We also manufacture in another province as well, which is close by, which has also been affected by the power cuts, but certainly not to the same extent. So in terms of the power cuts, it's a factor that hasn't affected us greatly, although it doesn't mean we're completely. And as a downward trend as well, another factor that's been prevalent for us recently is the raw material shortages. So not just inverters as well, modules, but there's certainly been a raw materials component shortage globally. And you know, previously we've had at least 6 months lead times with every one of our suppliers for our inverters. And as you can imagine, there's hundreds of components that go into the inverter, and it only takes one component to have a shortage before you've got delays. And so it's been really difficult, I suppose, in the last few months for inverter manufacturers, because unlike years have gone past, we don't have months and months lead time and confirmation. It's really a month-by-month basis that the suppliers of the components are basically telling us how many components we can have. So that's been challenging, of course, because customers want firm ETAs, and we want to give them firm ETAs. And we're certainly doing the best we can. But, you know, as a result, lead times have sort of blown out in terms of containers an extra 2 to 3 weeks, as opposed to the usual 4 weeks in production and 4 weeks on the sea freight. I suppose the question is, when will the raw material shortage improve? We think it will potentially last maybe another 6 to 9 months. And there's other strategies to cope with it as well. One of the strategies is start using alternative components than the brand you're currently using, which is certainly what a lot of the inverter manufacturers have been doing, but that's also limited as well, because there's certain components that if you do change in the inverter, you then need to go through complete recertification again, which, as we know, can take months and months and months. So it's really a fine balance of managing all of these factors and coming out the other side. I suppose the good news for us in Australia is that we've certainly delivered more product into the country than ever before. You know, 40 to 50% more this year, and whilst Australia was severely impacted by lockdowns, we think next year will be even bigger again. So I'll just talk quickly about our three-phase products we have in the market. First of all, our small three-phase range is called the Sdt G2, and some of you may be aware that we actually superseded the Sdt Generation 1 only within the last few weeks from the 8 to 20 kilowatt range. We already had the 5 and the 6 in the market, so it now includes a 5, a 6, an 8 kilowatt, a 10, a 15, and a 20 kilowatt in this range. It has 2 MPPTs, and it also has 2 inputs per MPPT. So if you're familiar with the older version, which is the 10, the 15, and the 20, it's also had 2 trackers, but it only had 3 inputs in total. So this basically gives us a lot more flexibility, also gives the installer greater oversizing ability as well. And some of the key differences between the new version and the old version, I'll go through in the next couple of slides. We then move to the SMT series, and this is the start of our commercial range, which has a 25, a 29.99, and a 30 kilowatt inverter. The 29.99 is certainly the most popular out of that series, and it has a inbuilt DC isolator, same as the Sdt G2, same as the HT series, and all of our single phase range has the inbuilt compliant DC isolator. It also has a screen as well, so every single one of our string inverters come with an inbuilt screen, and it also has a standard 10-year warranty as long as it's registered on the portal. Another unique feature about the SMT series is that it has 1100 volts as a DC input voltage, and this effectively means that you can put an extra 2 panels in each of your strings. So just adding greater flexibility for the installer. And on top of that, another really unique feature is the DC cover. So we have a DC cover that comes as standard, and that covers the DC inputs and also the DC isolator. And basically that alleviates the need for the installer to put a cage or a barrier around the inverter because we've put that there for them. We then move to the MT series. This is our 50, our 60 and 80 kilowatt inverter. This has 4 MPPT trackers ranging up to 16 inputs. And again, 50% oversizing capability. It has an inbuilt screen, and similar to all of our commercial inverters, you can oversize them by 50%. We then move to the newest and the largest model in our commercial range, which is the new HT series. We're bringing this out in 100 kilowatt, a 110 and a 120 kilowatt inverter. It has up to 12 MPPT trackers. Again, it has a compliant inbuilt DC isolator. It has, also similar to our MT series, it won't actually start derating until it gets to 50 degrees Celsius. And so if you look at any of the other commercial inverters on the market, or certainly most of them, they'll start derating around 47, even 45 to 47 degrees. But this actually won't start derating to 50 degrees. Doesn't mean that it'll actually fail at 50 degrees. It just means that it starts linear degrading. We think we've really got all the features that we wanted in this product. It's got 15% AC overloading, and I'll talk more about that in a minute. But what we mean by that is, let's say, for example, you've got a 100 kilowatt inverter and you've put 110 or 120 kilowatts of panels, or sorry, at least 15% more panels, it's actually going to produce 15% more. So it will actually produce more than 100 kilowatts if you oversize it with panels. And that's certainly a really big selling point. And the regulatory authorities will always go by the nominal output of the inverter. Therefore, we're able to produce more. Another feature that we've introduced into this product is arc fault circuit interrupter. And this is just another safety mechanism and another innovation feature that we're bringing out on all of our new inverters. The Sdt G2, which I mentioned just before, as I said, 50% oversizing. So that now means that our entire 3-phase range has the capability to oversize by 50%. As you know, you can claim STCs on up to 33%. However, from an inverter manufacturer standpoint, we're comfortable with you oversizing by 50%. And AC overloading, which we mentioned before, the Sdt G2 series from 5 to 20 kilowatts has 10% AC overloading. So if you've got a 10 kilowatt inverter and you pair that with 11 kilowatts or more of panels, it's actually going to output 11 kilowatts. And you can see here on this slide, and I'll highlight some of the differences between the G1 and the G2. Probably the most redeeming feature is the inbuilt DC isolator. So we had it on the 5 and 6 because it was a G2, but everything from 8 to 20 kilowatts previously didn't have an inbuilt DC isolator. It now does. And another difference is the maximum input voltage, which is now 1100 volts. As I said before, that allows you to add an extra couple of panels in each of your strings. And then lastly, the number of inputs effectively going from 3 to 4. So on the previous generation, there was a slight limitation if you tried to oversize on the 15 kilowatt inverter in particular, but certainly no limitation there moving forward. And in terms of our storage inverters, we really break it up into 4 different categories. The first one is our 3-phase hybrids. This is called the ET series. We have that now in a 5, a 6, an 8, and a 10. Previously, we only had it in a 5 and a 10, but we've also now released the 6 and the 8 kilowatt in this series as well. This is a high voltage hybrid solution, so therefore can only be paired with compatible batteries. And we also have a compatibility statement if you need that as well. The next one is our single phase AC coupled hybrid, which is single phase AC coupled retrofit inverter. This is called our SVP series. And where we really try to promote this is if a customer already has a solar system on their house and now they're looking to add batteries, you can simply add this AC charger next to that existing inverter. And it doesn't matter if that inverter is a GoodWe or if it's another brand. This is effectively compatible. It also means that the installer is then not liable for that existing system that was installed. Next is our single phase high voltage hybrid. This is called the EH. We have this in a 3.6, a 5 kilowatt, and a 6 kilowatt. Next is our ES, which is a low voltage hybrid single phase. And this is our highest selling hybrid that we have. So again, we have that in a 3.6 and a 5 kilowatt. So with all of our hybrids, we have UPS level of backup functionality. And what we mean by that is when the grid shuts off, our backup will kick in within 10 milliseconds, which qualifies for UPS level switching, as opposed to EPS, which must kick in within 5 seconds. And in terms of the key selling points for our storage inverters, first of all, we believe that we certainly have the largest solutions portfolio of storage inverters, whether that's single phase, 3-phase, low voltage, or high voltage, we have the solution. As I said before, UPS backup switching. All the meters and the accessories are provided in the box. So with a single phase hybrid, you need a meter and you need a CT. With a 3-phase hybrid, you need a 3-phase meter and 3 CTs. We include this in the box free of charge installer. Our backup's inbuilt, so there's no external backup device at an extra cost that you have to pay for. And the reason why we've done that is because we've tried to make it as easy as possible for the installers. We certainly knew that early days when people were starting to install hybrids, they then found out there was extra price for external backups. They then found out there's extra pricing for CTs, for meters, and their costs really blew out. So we've included everything in the box. So if you know that you're going to buy a GoodWe hybrid, you know that you're effectively not going to need any additional accessory to buy separately. And then lastly, the large charge and discharge current. So the ES that I mentioned before, which is our single phase low voltage hybrid, that has the highest charge and discharge current on the market, which is 100 amps. And then the product that we've released recently, which we're probably most excited about, is our own battery. So we've released a low voltage battery into the market. That'll start filtering through certainly in the next few weeks. It's a 5.4 kilowatt hour low voltage battery, and we couple that with our ES and also our SVP inverter. So on top of that, we're also about to release a high voltage battery into the market. That'll be ready and in the market by Q1 next year. And that'll be a HV battery, and that'll be compatible with our EH and also our ET inverters. They're IP65 rated, they're safe, they're reliable. It also has an ultra rapid battery charge as well. And as you can see here, you can actually add multiples together on the same site. So you can actually add 6 of them together on the one site. The photo is a little bit misleading in that you do have a gap requirement in between each battery, but effectively allows you to add 30 kilowatt hours of battery on one side. As I said before, they're IP65 rated for indoor and outdoor, and they're also wall mounted or ground mounted as well. So again, just on the availability, Cranich have obviously invested heavily in these as well, and Cranich will start receiving their stock within the next few weeks in the market. And the uptake has been even bigger than we thought, that's for sure. One of the reasons we brought out our battery was there was a huge demand from our side that we were getting from the installers. They wanted to deal with the one manufacturer from an inverter and a battery perspective. That way they're not calling two different manufacturers, two manufacturers effectively blaming it on each other, and communication breakdown and whatnot. You know, this is something we've thought long and hard about for a while. Certainly wanted to diversify in terms of our business as well. And yeah, really proud to release our low voltage batteries, followed by our high voltage batteries early next year. And then hopefully late next year, we'll release our commercial battery into the market as well. You can see from the specs here that it's 5.4 kilowatt hours and 4.8 kilowatts usable. Also, in most cases, people will couple two batteries together. That'll give them the 100 amps, maximum continuous discharge current. If you only use the one battery, it's a 50 amp max continuous discharge current, which effectively equates to a discharge power of 2.88 kilowatts. Whereas if they're using two batteries together, the max discharge power is 5.7 kilowatts. And each unit is 57 kilos each. As I said before, wall mounted, ground mounted, and it all comes in the box. There's nothing additional you need to purchase. I'll now just hand it over to Mike, who will talk to you a little bit about some frequently asked questions that our service team gets, and hopefully I'll be able to give you some answers.
Sure, thanks, Dean. Firstly, can you hear my voice?
Yep, we can hear.
Perfect. Yeah, thanks for the info setup. So this is just a quick few of slides to cover the most popular questions which has been asked in the market, and hopefully this can give you some idea. So basically, there's some question about our GoodWe accessories. So we have break down some scenario with different models. So for our single phase inverter, covers the model XS, NS, DNS, TTS, and MS inverter. They're all GoodWe single phase inverter, just different power size with different MPP trackers. So if the customer want to do export limit, they just need to purchase this CT90 clamp. So currently we offer two versions of CT90. The most popular one is CT90-5, which means the CT is 5 meters length. And if your installation job, the meter box is longer than 10 meters away from the inverter, then usually you can select CT90-30, which is 30 meters length CT clamps. And of course, if customer has export limit function request plus consumption monitoring, which is a very popular demand in the market, then you can just purchase this HomeKey 1000. This meter comes with two CT clamps. So by using this, the customer can do consumption monitoring. So basically on the monitoring portals, the power generation curve, besides of the solar power generation, the customer also can see the load curve, consumption curve on the same platform. So that's for single phase. For three phase, could we just move to the next slide? Yeah, for three phase currently Sdt G2, which is from 5 kilowatt to 20 kilowatt, three phase, or SMT from 25 to 36, and MT 50, 60, and 80 kilowatt inverter. Similar like single phase. If customer just want to do export limit, they just need to purchase this GM3000 meter, which comes with 3 CT clamps already pre-connected to the meter. This only do export limit. So if customer want to do export control plus consumption monitoring, then we have this HomeKey 3000 we just released into the market starting from last month. This one can work with individual Sdt G2 or individual SMT inverter. This one comes with 3 CT clamps as well. So if customer want to do the multiple consumption monitoring and export limit, they need to use SEC 1000. And then this slide mainly just have a brief intro about the new inverter standard, which take effective starting from 18th December 2021. So basically, which means all inverter right now is selling in the market. If it's only compliant with the current standard, which is 2015, they can now be installed after December 18th of December. So there's a few of big change on the standard side. I just pick up some popular questions installer always ask. The first one is the country setting code. So current standard means each DNSP distributor power supplies, they have their own grid connection protection setting points. That means either the installer need to manually set up this point when they commission the inverter, or the inverter supply give all this DNSP list. So installer just need to select the relevant DNSP code when they commissioning. But after December, under the new standard, what happens is the standard only requires inverter supply, just set up four grid connection points on the inverter, which is A, B, C, and the New Zealand standard. Then each DNSP will nominate which code they selected. So in future, instead of select the DNSP, installer just need to select either Australia A or B or C according to where they install the system. And another big difference is previously we don't have VDRT function request, and early of this year, starting from South Australia, then following by Western Australia, they have more requests on inverter to pop with the voltage drive-through condition, and then the new standard puts this into the inverter standard to request inverter has this function. Then some other change like the new standard has wider grid exception connection points compared with the current old ones. So for example, like the overall voltage action point, the old one is 260 volt and the new one is 265. And the old one, the level 2 over voltage protection is 265. The new one will be 275. I think this is a very good movement, which means the standard writers, they realize right now we have so much individual solar system being installed, and potentially the grid needs a better tolerance to cope with such large residential solar installations. And another good thing is this year the new standard put the DC isolator certificate into the request. Previously, the inverter manufacturer, if they have the DC isolator, they only need to have the general DC isolator certificate from the different testing departments. But right now, what happened is, besides of the DC isolator itself need to be certified, each inverter need to certify the DC isolator as well according to the inverter models. So this would be a big change, but from manufacturer side, we believe this is a very good movement, which means by doing this more comprehensive testing, we have more confidence that the DC isolator built on the inverter can better to replace the DC isolator either next to the inverter or the DC isolator on the roof as well. And then the next one is our Lynx battery. So basically on each battery, we have a 63 amps battery breaker on top of the battery. And if installer just use one battery to link with the inverter, and if the inverter, the gap between inverter and the battery is less than 2 meters, then you don't need to install the external DC breaker between the inverter and the battery, purely because our battery comes with this breaker as well, and this breaker can be accessible without using any tool to open the top cover of the battery. Then the last slide is just mainly intro about over 10 years full warranty promotion starting from this year. So basically early of this year, we start to offering 10 years warranty across the full models of GoodWe PV inverters at this moment. So there are only two provisions. One is all this inverter must be produced after 1st of July 2020, and pretty much all inverter right now in the market has basically produced this year. And second provision is all this inverter must be connect to our monitoring SAMS portals. And then once it's connected to the SAMS portal, customer can apply for the full 10 years warranty from us straight away. Yeah, I think basically that's all popular questions from customers. So I return this back to Dean.
Yeah, thanks, Mike, for that. And now I'll just quickly pass it over to John. As I said, John's our marketing manager for Australia and New Zealand, and John's been integral in this end of line promotion that we've got coming up at the moment. So over to you, John.
Hello, everyone. Thank you very much. Dean, I'm John Wright. I'm marketing manager for GoodWe Australia. Yes, so the current promotion we have is an end-of-line promotion, and it applies to models in the SMT range. And for this promotion, we're going to be offering a $100 reward value for applicable models. This is valid on purchases between 1st of October and the 17th of December. That's inclusive of those dates. And what will happen then is we'll load the total value that you have earned onto the GoodWe Visa rewards cards, which you can see pictured below. And will be sent directly to you, the account holder with Greenwich, and you can spend it however you like, whether that's a personal reward or a business expense, however you want to do. Please do ensure, though, that you have correct postal details and mobile phone numbers registered with Greenwich. The mobile phone number is important because you'll need that to activate and use the card. Obviously, there are terms and conditions, which I won't go into here, but please do speak to your Greenwich sales representative or contact Greenwich directly, and they can provide you with those. Yes, that's short and sweet from myself. I do believe that we do have a $100 door prize, if you will, for attendees joining us this afternoon. What I'll do is I'll let Greenwich pick one of these attendees at random, and we'll notify you following this webinar, and we can get your reward card to you sometime in early December. Thank you very much indeed.
Thanks, John. And thanks everyone for listening in today. Again, I just want to thank Greenwich for their partnership that they have with GoodWe, and also for facilitating this webinar and allowing us to present on some of the new products that we've got coming out, as well as just some of the factors that are affecting the industry, and also some technical service points as well. Hand it back to you now, Shane. Was there any questions?
That's exactly what I wanted to ask. Is there anyone who has a question from the participants? You could write it in the chat, or I think writing in the chat would be the easiest. Yes. I can't see anything, so looks like every topic was regarded well. Thank you so much once more, everyone, for staying and checking today. I hope you had a good time understanding the product range from GoodWe a little better. And really, please take one important message from today. There is stock coming into the country. You will be able to finish your installations, but please order in time. Please make sure that you secure the stock as quick as possible, so you're not getting crazy during the already hot time anyway. Thank you so much, and have a good evening.
There's a question come through. Malcolm Green would like to know what model is best for residential three-phase storage.
What model is best for three-phase storage? So our ET series is our three-phase hybrid, and we have that in a 5, a 6, an 8, and a 10 kilowatt, and it's a high voltage option.
All right, well, thanks everyone for attending today. We'll do that draw now and send the winner over to GoodWe to get that card organised.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
You.
Thanks everyone.